Hello, everyone. My name is Stacy Nell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission, back with another Lunch and Learn. Today, a special guest. I'm thrilled to be joined by Wendo Kimori. Hello, Wendo.
Hey.
Wendo joins us from the Voter Network, as you can tell by the fact that we've got the graphic already up. And she has also participated in all of the leadership brunches that KAAAC has held around the state over this past summer. One of the things, the biggest thing that we have been focused on with the leadership brunches is the voter network and building a voter to voter team for KAAAC and KBLC. And so this is kind of a follow up presentation by Wendo so that we can all go back to it and sort of digest the information slowly in case you attended a brunch and you were like, wow, that sounded great, but I have no clue what she said. So thank you, Wendo, for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
All right, my first question, even though I've talked to you a lot, my first question is, of course, what are you having for lunch today? Have you already had lunch today?
I have not eaten yet. I was gonna have some noodles from my dining hall. I'm on campus right now, but I've also really been craving a donut. So I think after this, I'm gonna go get a donut, then go get the noodles, and then yeah.
The benefit of youth, you can just say, I'm gonna go get a donut. I can eat like one donut a month if I'm lucky. Yeah, I've got
Wow.
some leftovers. I literally had like 2 bites of leftovers just so that my stomach didn't growl through this recording. So I'm like, let me just get some food in my mouth.
Oh, that's smart. I hope my stomach doesn't growl.
I'm
Yikes.
sure it'll be fine. Okay, so
Awesome.
Wendo is currently a student at Washburn University. And you well, actually you said you're going to talk about yourself. I should let you talk about yourself. But she is currently a research assistant with the Voter Network, which is why she is here. So, Wendo, let's just get going. Let's roll into it. Let's go with the presentation.
Awesome. I'm excited to get started. So, again, thank you so much, Stacy, for having me. I'm here on behalf of the Voter Network. And of course, as promised, I have a little slide with some info about me. So, who is this message coming from? This theme will come up later in the slide, but my name is Wendo Kimori, and I am a research intern for the Voter Network of Kansas. I'm also a current junior at Washburn University studying communication studies, pre-law, and then double minoring in leadership and public relations. The photo right there below is me with the NAACP Youth Council, which I founded a couple of years back, and that was one of the chili feasts that we had. I believe that was either the pick from this year or last year, but we're, super consistent, love doing some work in the community. And then the picture on the okay, since this is recorded, that's my right and also your right. So that's me up at Princeton University this past April. I was invited to speak on race relations and as a past winner of the Princeton Prize in race relations. So something, a couple of, oh, did you say something?
No, I'm just proud of you. That's all. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, thank you. No, yeah, I'm super passionate about race relations, and so I'm really thrilled that I have been able to speak at the KBLC brunches, just my two favorite topics intersecting democracy and race relations. So yeah, so what is the Voter Network? So the Voter Network is a nonprofit dedicated to creating a culture of informed, enthusiastic Kansas voters. I'm wearing my Kansas sweatshirt with the sunflower on it. Can't really see when I'm, sitting forward. I'm also wearing my vote necklace, so
I love the vote necklace. It's awesome.
thank you. Thank you. I think Michelle Obama wore it in one of her like PSAs, and so that's
She
where,
did.
yeah, that's I was inspired. So yes, especially in communities that have been systematically excluded, and so those again are minorities that data will come up later. But we do this through our innovative peer-to-peer effort, voter-to-voter tool, and by providing reliable, nonpartisan election resources, kind of like the one that you're seeing on the left. This is an example of one of the pamphlets that we actually have been giving out at the brunches. And anytime we table, you'll find us with like brochures, handouts, stickers, with this kind of information where we have the dates and links and websites, just all really good resources. Of course, nonpartisan, we're not promoting or pushing any candidates, and they're comprehensive. We even have an online ballot guide at ksballot.org, and then we have it in Spanish at ksboleta.org because language access is also super important when trying to increase voter participation. And of course, election timelines. such as what you're seeing on the left, and then templates and flyers and social media graphics. When we get into the discussing how we use the voter to voter tool and how we reach out, I think it's kind of daunting sometimes. It's like, oh, I don't know what to text people. Don't worry, we have templates, we have outlines. You just got to plug people's names in and send it out, and we're all good. And then of course we have social media. Follow the Voter Network on pretty much all of our platforms where we post these things. I find them super easy to just reshare, or I'll DM people and be like, hey, click this link, make sure you're registered, make sure you've requested your ballot, all those things. So what is the problem? Well, as we know, low voter turnout hurts our communities. So, less than 25% of registered Kansas voters participate in local elections. So, and also only 1 in 5 like eligible like adults in Kansas is registered to vote. So, I love sharing that statistic because it's like you already have a very small pool of people who are registered to vote, but now the people out of that top tiny pool who are showing up is even smaller. So again, the people who do vote are older, whiter, and wealthier than the population as a whole. And this is, problematic because, of course, people are going to vote with their own interest in mind. So when your demographics, when you are not showing up or when you're not represented in the polls, then those are the kinds of results that we see in elections. And so candidates have limited resources for talking to non-voters, which forms a low information loop. And so the average person who's running for office, has a tiny budget. I know we talked about this even like in your campaign, Stacey, like at the KBLC brunches, where you are only going to be reaching out to the people who will show up to elections, who are consistent voters. But now the people whose doors aren't getting knocked on are those who aren't showing up. And those people are probably not around other people who are like actively participating in elections or engaged. And so that's a low information loop where these people just never get the information. They don't get the texts. They don't get the, door knockings. And of course, it's easy for policymakers to ignore people who don't vote because, again, your interests are not being represented in the booths. And
This
so,
reminds me of something that I say often is that politicians pay attention to the people who pay attention to them.
yeah,
Right. And
yeah.
so it's it's easy for policymakers to ignore people who don't vote.
Yep. Yep. So super important that we again target the demographics of people who are not showing up. And that's why I think relational organizing is so unique. But of course, we'll talk about that more in a second. And
Mhm.
so here's some data from the 2023 general election. This is the percent of registered age eligible Kansans. And so as we can see, this breaks it down by race. And so white people, of course, are 86%, of the eligible voting population. 86% of them are registered, ready to vote. Asian, and then we kind of see it trickling down. Asians, we've got 67%, Hispanic people, 64%, Black people, 56%, and then Native and Indigenous people, 31%. So, kind of backing up what I said in that last slide of like white people are the most, they're showing up to the polls and they are the highest like registered population. And of course, a lot of our minorities are, significantly lower. And again, now here's that turnout by race and ethnicity. So who is actually, we know who's registered, but now who's actually coming into the polls and actually casting their ballot. So this is data from the 2022 general election. And the darker bar is from the primary, and then the lighter bar is from the general. And so here again, we can see the white race of people is significantly, almost twice as high as a lot of the races that we have here, coming in at 58% for the general election and 54% who showing up to vote. Hispanic people, 29% for the general, and then 31% for the primary. Black people, 35% for the general, 30% for the primary, and then Asian people, 38% for the general, and then 34% for the primary.
And let's just to define this because I think you and I live in this topic. And so maybe we take some of these words for granted. But when we talk about turnout, that may be something that people hear, oh, turnout was low, turnout is high, we expect turnout. What exactly is turnout?
So turnout is the people who are actually showing up and casting so these aren't the people who've maybe when they got their driver's license they just checked the box and are registered. These are the people who are actually showing up and voting and or of course sending in their mail-in ballots. These are the ballots that we get. Those are the demographics. And
Mhm.
so again, like from the already small pool of people who are registered to vote, we have an even smaller percentage, which is so small comparatively to now the whole population who is
Right.
actually showing up, casting their ballot, deciding who gets, voted in, a lot of huge decisions that are being made.
Right. So like, so yeah, and that's the thing. So let's just make up this make up a population of 100. So given your previous slide, if we have 100 Black people who are between over the age of 18, right, and eligible to vote, you say of the 100 Black people, only 56 of those have even registered to vote,
Yes.
right? And then of
Hmm.
those 56 who are registered to vote, at that point, only 35% of those 56 people are actually turning out to vote. So
Yeah.
if the entire population, the Black population of the state of Kansas was only 100 people, only 56 of them are registered. And whatever 30, I haven't done the math, I should have done the math, whatever 35% of 56 people. So we're down to like 30 people who are actually voting. And so that's the
Yeah.
problem we're trying to address.
Yeah, thanks for that breakdown. That's a really good way of thinking about it. Because I think when you go in order of all these numbers, it's kind of hard to keep track. But yeah, it's quite frank. It's a very, very small number of people who are ultimately deciding things that are, people who are making these lifelong, very long lasting decisions. So yeah.
Yes.
Alrighty, so here I've got a couple of examples of very, very close races. And as we can see, when our races are close, when elections are close, when people already aren't showing up, then that's when our votes matter most. That's where we see really, really slim margins. On the left here, I've got a Roland Park City Council election from the Ward 2 general election 2023. The difference between the, person who ended up winning and who didn't was 6 votes. 6 people essentially decided that election, and the turnout for that race was 26%. So, again, of the eligible people, this is not race specific, but now just general out of
Yeah.
everyone who could have, that's like barely a quarter of the people who are showing up to vote. And then on the right here from here in Topeka, Topeka City Council, District 8 from 2019. We have, seems like a few more people showing up, but general election was 18.59% people who showed up there. And then the difference was 13 ballots. And very, very, very slim margins, very, very close races. And then another one. This one makes me scratch my head as the picture here shows. This is a Silver Lake mayoral race from 2023, the general election. And the difference here was 9 votes. And the turnout for that election was 18.2%. And so again, when we have very, very small numbers of people who are showing up, that's when we see just like I can count on my hands and imagine it's like the thought process of wow, that's my lunch table, that's my group of coworkers, that's my, your average. It's just such a small group of people, very slim margins, and that are deciding entire races. So yes, very, very concerning numbers. But luckily, fear not, the Voter Network, we have many tools to combat this. And so this is kind of what brings us to the ethos of why we do what we do. So who the message comes from is just as important as the message. We kind of gave the example earlier of how candidates, they'll knock on doors or, when they have their like campaign volunteers or whoever, it's strangers, and how likely are you to do something that a stranger tells you? You don't know who they are, you barely know the candidate, you already don't know much about voting. So you might, smile and nod when they're out your door and then take their pamphlet and then just kind of throw it away. But not really understand the deliverables or what they're asking. And so what's good about what we're doing is that we use the model of relational organizing. So just like what we say in the slide here, it keeps things personal and it's effective. So we're not asking you to, knock on doors of strangers or text people who you don't know. You're working within your network of people who you already see every day, be that coworkers, classmates, workmates. Yeah, I work in school are my only examples, but or church groups or book clubs. There we go. Um, but essentially, teams are built of friends, family members, and neighbors who talk to people that they already know. So again, we're not asking you to, talk to strangers or people who you don't know. You talk to your friends and they talk to theirs until everyone is voting. And so here's the structure of a team. So we've got a team leader. So like for our KBLC team, Stacy and I are the team leaders recruiting the ambassadors. And so you all, people who are watching, would be volunteers who empower their contacts to vote. So what we would have you do is go into our tool, which we'll show on the next slide here, and then, find 10 people within your network, maybe see about your Bible study group or the people that you go to, I don't know, play tennis or pickleball with, or you go to school with. I love all these examples I'm coming up with. The people in your
You
orchestra.
have
I
it
have
all. And I know, I mean, we talked
yeah.
a lot about KBLC, but with CAC, one of the first things we did is that all the CAC commissioners
Mm.
are ambassadors as well. So all the CAC commissioners have a group of people that they are contacting in addition to just trying to find people from the lunches.
Nice. Love that. But yeah, that's exactly what we want. We want people to, you spread the news, even if you were like, hey, I have this contact, but I think they have a reach. They have, they have access to this population who probably has a lot of like low propensity voters or who knows people who aren't voting. I'm gonna see if they would also be interested in being an ambassador. It just kind of grows that like ecosystem of, hey, here's how we're going
Yes.
to increase voter turnout. And so this is the tool. So what we use is called voter to voter. And so we use public data to encourage effective voter engagement. So once you log in and create an account, this is what your like, dashboard will look like. And so essentially what you're doing is you look up people who have active vote. These people will not show up if they're not registered to vote. And so that's kind of the first thing. You look them up and you see if they're popping up in the database, then that means that they do have an active voter profile. But if they're, citizen over the age of 18 can, eligible to vote, but maybe are not, then that's when we'd have you send a message and be like, hey, here's the link, make sure you're registered, updated your address, whatever that may be. And so then you add them to your list. And this is kind of what it will look like after people are added. So you'll have their name, it'll show their last name. We've blurred out, information. This is just an example, sample, and then it'll show the city that they're from. And then the score right there, that column where it shows the number, is kind of the more important thing that we're looking at. If someone has a 4 there, this means that they have, in the past 4 elections, have showed up to all of them and voted in all of them. But who we're really targeting are the people like Bianca and Jill down here who have a lower voter propensity score. So the voter propensity score is how many elections that they've participated in the past 4. And so the lower they are, that means the less likely they are to vote. So you're going to really want to work hard and make sure that they are aware of the deadlines and they know where they're going to vote and they have voting plans. And so, yeah, that's what like the one is, that they've only participated in one. For me, when I was a mobilizer last year, I'm on campus, obviously. And so I had a lot of students who were first time voters. And so all of their propensity scores were 0 because they'd never been eligible to vote. And so we were able to turn that up to 1, bless up. So I'm hyped that it was, and of course, young people are also a very, very, non-voting really population. So those are the kinds of people that we're really trying to make sure they have the information and the resources and that they're ready to go come
Yeah.
election day.
So with this screen, because you have wisely blanked out people's last names, but if you were to get into the tool, you would see Amanda Smith or whatever Amanda's last name, or Bianca Smith, or Jill Smith, and then the city. And like she mentioned, the number, the propensity score, is how likely they would necessarily be to vote. And yes, you see where the people are registered, and this is how they are registered, not how they necessarily have voted, but if that person is registered as a Democrat, they're registered unaffiliated, or they're registered libertarian, or libertarian. People can be registered libertarians in Kansas, or registered Republican. This is not how the person has voted. So when some people are, it's news to them that the voter file is public, that we
Yeah.
can look people up and find out whether or not they voted, but the voter file
It
is
was news
public.
to me when I got started. Yeah, I was like, you can see my address, but but yeah.
Yeah, because the voter file is public. We cannot see how a person has voted. And so that is not public, but we can see whether a person has voted. And that's what we're trying to do. It's one of the things I really like about voter to voter, is that it's really focused on a behavior as opposed to who a person's voting for. That's not the concern. It's just,
Yeah.
are you voting? So yeah, I think it's interesting. And I have looked people up, and I looked up a gentleman once, and he's like, I'm a good voter. And he said, I'm a good voter. I vote in all the presidential elections. And I was like, this
But
is
wait,
this
there's
is an
more.
educational point to say that there's more, there's elections in between presidential
Mhm.
elections. And so that's part of the education. Okay, I didn't mean to
Oh yeah.
cut you off. Keep
No,
going.
that's no, that's a good point. That's the beauty of us being nonpartisan. It'll show whatever they've affiliated as, but we don't that doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing, unless you maybe want an idea of, okay, maybe they're getting text messages from their local Republican Party or Democratic Party, whoever. But still, it's the propensity score that will really tell us. And I will say, I was an election worker last year, and so even when like literally as soon as you turn your ballot in, you don't even have your name on the ballot. So there's no way of people
Yeah,
like even knowing who or what you voted for. So
right,
that is completely secure, anonymous. We just want to know whether you are voting or not.
right.
And so here is, an election timeline. So let's say you've assembled your team, and then it's like, okay, I have my list of contacts. Now what? What am I doing? Well, we will be sending you messages and reminders to then remind your contacts. Okay, October 14th, this is, the timeline for the general election. Okay, October 14th is the voter registration deadline. Are you registered? Here's a link if you're not. Make sure you and also update your name, location change, anything or address change, anything like that, which is when that would need to be done by. And so we remind you all to then remind your contacts. And then, of course, the day after is when voting by mail begins. At this point, you would have also, communicated with your contacts. Okay, what are your voting plans? Do you plan on voting early? Are you going to be voting the day of? We always encourage people to vote early because, I mean, you never know what might happen. You might get caught up at work or, I'm a huge fan of early voting. I'm an early voteaholic. So I huge, just get it done ASAP. And then you remind people as the day goes on, as the weeks go on, hey, you can still vote. And then you also connect them and say, okay, do you know where your polling locations are? Because it's not always at the place like my regular voting location on the vote day isn't the same as my early voting place. So you want to make sure people have their specific information that's relevant to them. And then, of course, when early in-person voting begins, October 15th, October 28th is the last day to request a mail-in ballot. And then even with mail-in ballots, I mean, there's a lot of different like voter suppression things that are happening right now. So like they recently, I believe this is actually the last election where we have the 3-day window for ballots to arrive at the post office. So if like by any means possible, if you're able to turn that in person, that's great. Just so that, make sure it gets into the office and they're able to count it. And then of course, November 4th is election day. So reminding people, hey, if you're in line, stay in line. Polls close at 7. Just yeah, this is the day. And then of course 7th, but this will no longer be relevant after this election, but that's when mailed
Yeah,
ballots must
and
arrive.
I do want to double down on that. This election, we still do have the 3-day mail processing period, and I'm starting to call it the mail processing period because that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah,
But it's good to practice it with this election that it's not going to be in existence because it's not going to be in existence moving forward. So
yeah,
if you are a person who is using an advanced mail-in ballot, as soon as you get that bad boy in the mail, fill it out, and if at all possible, take it to the election office, take it to when early in person voting begins, take it. You can always drop it off at an in person voting site. If it must get mailed back, mail it back immediately.
yeah.
There's one other thing that I even looked it up today.
Mhm.
Today, if you are registered to vote, like for example, I'm registered to vote. If you go to voter view, and this will all be in the show notes, if you go to voter view, you can look up a sample ballot. It'll clearly say sample, right? It's not a ballot that I can actually vote with and send back. It's got a watermark that clearly says it's a sample. But I
Yeah,
can see what my ballot is, who are the races, who are the names. So if I want to, I think that's one of the benefits of mail-in ballots, advanced ballots. It's the same thing, is that you can get it and then take your time to Google people, look people up,
yeah,
or look up whatever
yeah,
the questions are on the ballot. But you can right now go to VoterView, which is the Kansas Secretary of State's page, and download what your ballot will look like. So I
mhm,
can take my sample ballot and look up who these people are, figure out who I want to vote with for, and then I can take that piece of paper, sample, right, not the actual ballot, and go to in person early voting and make sure that I have voted for the people who I've decided I want to vote for. So mail in ballot, especially since we know that the processing period is going away, that means that if people are counting on that mail in ballot, we know that there's going to be tens of thousands of ballots that are not going to get counted. We just know that's going to be the case. So if at all possible, if you're a person who is using a mail-in advance ballot, practice now getting that bad boy back as soon as possible. Okay. I just
Yeah.
wanted to double down on
No,
that.
that's a good point. There's a lot of kind of like I said, like different things with like voter suppression happening, and so just we're having to update our methods, even with like the way that we communicate. Like we've noticed, the woman who's in charge of our social media for the voter network has noticed that like our messages that are saying, hey, like here's the voter deadline, make sure you're registered. Those are getting flagged on like TikTok or whatever as like spreading dangerous information, and it's like
Mm,
um, you know,
yeah.
this isn't quite dangerous, but I know for me, again, a lot of my people on my list last year who were students and who were living at home but wanted to, do the mail-in ballots, I had to be like, okay, so high key, you need to do this ASAP because you don't want to mess with that. Don't want to cut it too close to that deadline because there's just really no way of knowing. But yes. And then, of course, mail-in ballots, as of this is the last election, but they must be postmarked by election day. So if you absolutely must, make sure. But if you can, if at all possible, like Stacey said, turn it in person. That's like kind of our best bet here. And so here is how we know that it really works. So here's statewide voter turnout efforts compared with the people that we connected with. So relational, ours is the light blue bar, and it's consistently higher than that dark blue bar, which is just the general like statewide efforts. And obviously in the middle years, those are the kind of midterm elections that don't get a lot of turnout anyway. But still, relational is almost twice as better at reaching the unreached populations, just increasing that turnout. And most recently in our 2024, the statewide efforts were like 67% compared to us at 80. And that 2021 is really, really, I mean, that's like golden example. We have like 91% compared to the 72 percent of like statewide efforts. And so this is how we know. This is from that general election years as listed below, and that percentage of people who are showing up and voting. This is how we know that it works. And we especially know that it works because I was calling up counties. Part of my work is just doing research. I called like so many different counties, and we're getting that data also. That's we aren't just like pulling these numbers out of nowhere, out of thin air. We ask the counties, request the information, and we make sure we track it with like the data accurate numbers, very different methods. And so they're all secure, all very like robust. This is how we know it works. And so I'm really, really proud to be a part and affiliated with that kind of an initiative, because relational organizing is very, 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 I think it's accessible too. I think that's one thing that I like about it is it's not requiring you to go in person to a million meetings. If all you can do is just like kind of sit at home, then you're still able to like text or call up your people and just make sure that they're ready to vote. So, of course, here are our election resources. So this is, again, another example of something that's available on our website, just a timeline and what you would be working with as an ambassador, showing people, hey, so here's the deadline to register to vote. Here is when you should be receiving your mail-in ballot. Here's the last day to order one. Make sure you're like, this is the last chance to vote. This is election day. And KSBallot.org, once again, is where you can find nonpartisan election resources. Sample ballot, I think Casey mentioned or Stacy mentioned that you can find it on the Secretary of State's website. We also have that, available. I am guilty, especially like the first couple of times I voted, showing up in the booth and I'm like, I don't know any of these names. I was definitely in there like looking up people, trying to find like no meeting minutes from like candidate forums. But no, don't be like little 18-year-old Wendo. Be prepared, because it's also good to be an informed voter. It's not, you don't just show up, and I mean, showing up is great, but it's even better when you're able to know and understand who you're voting for and why, and you feel confident about that. We also have a run for office feature kind of late in the game right now for this upcoming race, but we do have that feature if you are interested. And if I always say, listen, if you don't like who's running, you throw your hat in the ring. You see how difficult it might be. But that's a kind of a new feature that we have. We also have candidate lookup, and so we have information on the candidates and people running, and so much more. And then also ksboleto.org is where you can find that in Espanol, because again, language access is super important in terms of increasing voter turnout. And then ksvotes.org is where you can update or verify voter registration. These are the links, these are the kinds of things that you would be sending to your contacts if they're like, oh, like I just moved and I want to update my address. Do I need to re-register? How do I do that? send them that link. It's very easy process. You just put in your new information, update it. So long as you do that by the deadline, should be good to go. You can also request a mail-in ballot through there. And so that voternetwork.org/toolkit is where you can find all of that. All of it is free. Just download. Super, super easy to follow. And so here are the next steps. This is what we've been asking at all of the KBLC and KAAAC brunches. So is that people sign up for the KBLC/KAAAC voter to voter team at this link here, bit.ly/KBLC KAAAC. Yeah, it's a lot of letters. And then of course you add 10 people in your personal network who are not regular voters. And I've been saying if you can't think of 10 people, then think of five. If you can't think of five, then maybe get out more. But if you can't think of five, then think of one. And if you can't think of one, then come on, there's no excuses. You know one person who needs a reminder to vote. And then we also have weekly office hours because I know this is like a lot of information, a lot to process, but we have them available Wednesdays from 12 to 1 p.m. at that bit.ly link where we have our staff who's available and ready to help you build your team or figure out the tool if anything like that is confusing. And then, of course, we have a general election kickoff call October 7th at noon. And then you can RSVP with that link, bit.ly/the OTV General 2025. I remember that call last year. It got me super, super pumped for just helping increase voter turnout. I'm really glad that I was part of an initiative like this. And we also have an exciting challenge alert. So in collaboration with the Topeka Voter Collaborative, we are hosting a voter turnout challenge across multiple cities in Kansas. So what we are asking is that you help increase the 2025, so this year's general election voter turnout in your city by 5% compared to the 2023 general election results. And so you can contact kj@thevoternetwork.org for more information and to take part in that challenge. Wouldn't be anything different. You're still adding people to your teams. You would just be, it'd be specific to your city. And this is really excited. We did our presentation with the Voter Collaborative last Tuesday, and I could tell the energy was kind of competitive. Seems like Topeka, top city, wants to come out on top. But I don't know. I have hope for the other cities. Maybe they have a chance. But it's a really just some friendly competition. Nothing crazy. All of this to just increase voter turnout, of course. But of course, I have a. What would you say?
Friendly competition.
Yeah, friendly competition, but also like democracy is at stake. So this is not So it's fun as it is. It's also like we want to build those habits. And so of course here's some of my lovely fall contacts from fall 2024. The first time that I was a mobilizer. All of these people were low propensity voters. Most of them first time voters. And the one next to the vote sign is my sister. She's always mad that I use that picture of her, but like whatever, you voted, so period. And so I have this story that I love sharing that I had, added people to my list, and I had this one young woman who had just had a baby, and she was also Black. And so I was like, okay, already hitting, my minority demographic, young person, and that intersectionality, people who we need represented in the polls and in the voting results. And so I'd been sending her messages. I was like, hey, are you registered to vote? Like, here's the deadline. And she told me, because it was that, election last year, she was like, I'm registered to vote, but I don't care. I'm not voting. I'm sick of the candidates. I'm sick of the news. I don't want to hear anything else. But I told her, I was like, well, because I knew there was a seat open for, I think it was the State Board of Education. And since you just had a kid, I was like, well, there's this race, and this person, whoever ends up winning the race, will be very influential in decisions that will affect your child's education and schooling. And she stopped responding. She didn't quite say anything, even though I was like, okay, today's the last day to request a mail-in ballot, whatever. But then after 7 p.m. on election night, she sent me a picture of her I voted sticker. And so I was really, really happy. And there's so many, this story is like, unique, but also not unique in that there's so many different ways and paths that people end up voting just because someone that they knew personally reached out and decided, hey, I care about you. I also care about democracy and how we are showing up and showing our voices. And so I'd love for you to participate in the election. Please vote. And so, yeah, so many stories like that. So many stories we can't wait to hear once everyone signs up to be an ambassador. And so, yeah, I
And
believe it's
I
the
wanted, I wanted to, I
end.
wanted to pass on other personal stories because, like for example, with CAC, the commission, I told the commissioners this is what we're doing, part of what we're doing, and one commissioner was hesitant. She's like, "Oh, this is going to just be one more thing that I have to do, right?" But then she got back to me and said, "Actually, this was quite easy because, as we mentioned, it's relational. The people who are on my team are people that I already know."
Yeah.
So these are people who it would not be strange for me to text them. These are people that I'm already in contact with. And she said it was actually quite easy because then all it is you type out one text, you copy and paste it, and you just send it to the 10 people that you've decided to send it to.
Yep.
And when I did this, the first time I made a team was in 2022. Same thing. I pulled 17 people. I specifically found 17 people who were not on Facebook. So it's not like they were inundated with a lot of stuff, but they were
Yeah.
my friends who were not on Facebook who had zero ones or twos. And of those 17 people, it was very simple. Hey, I think honestly, the first text I sent was, there's an election coming up. Because
Yeah.
if people are very low, if they haven't voted in the last four elections, they are
They
not
don't
paying
know.
attention.
Yeah.
So just, hey, there's an election coming up. And then it was in Johnson County, they send out a postcard with early voting in person. So I took a picture of that postcard. And when early voting was getting ready to start, it was like, hey, early voting's getting ready to start. Here's the picture. So it wasn't even like
Mm.
I had to come up with anything. It's very simple. It can be very, very simple. And if you're only texting five people, what I'm going to say is that of those 17 people of that election cycle, 15 of them voted. And so those are 17 people, 15 people who were not probably going to vote.
Yep.
Similarly, after that election, one of the women who I was reaching out to got back to me and she was like, you know what, thank you so much. I just had some anxiety. I just didn't know, where to go. I just didn't know who to ask questions of. So it was really helpful. And so I sort of demystified voting for her. So this is the
Yeah.
power of relational voting. That means it's that you're already talking to people that you're already talking to.
Hmm.
And it's just giving them a way to feel less overwhelmed by the prospects of voting.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to say. This is going to be posted, this video is going to be posted on Monday, September 29th. All right. Well, this will go on Monday, September 29th. So if you watched this video and you thought, okay, that sounds fantastic, but I have questions, there is going to be on October 1st office hours. So
Yes.
one of the reasons why we're specifically putting this out on Monday, and we're talking about the fact that in 2 days there's going to be office hours. So if you get into the tool, you sign up, and you mess about, I still have some questions, or I just want to have some clarification, please sign up for the office hours. All those links will be in the description box, show notes, whatever I need to send out when this gets emailed out. So please, if you have questions after this video, office hours coming up this Wednesday and every Wednesday between now and the election.
Yes.
Okay. Well, there it
Okay.
is. I mean, okay, we went a little long, 37 minutes, but I think it's good that we covered all this information. I mean, honestly, Wendo, is there anything else you wanted to add? I think it's been fun hanging out with you at all these brunches. The very
It's
first
been
time,
fun.
y'all, if you know who Mark Dupree or Micah Kubik is, this woman has got to get up and talk after Mark Dupree and
Yeah.
Micah Kubik. And every time I'm like, she handles herself so well. So
I
anyway,
I try. It was really scary that first time. I was like, come, okay, we're gonna have to talk again about this order of programming. But yeah, I guess my one thing that I would say is that I think when I got involved in this work, I was mostly kind of telling people, your vote is your voice. Make sure this is how you represent yourself, and all that is still true. I still stand by that. But I think that nowadays, especially with the current like political climate, I think that it's more important now than ever to work as hard as we can to preserve democracy. And it's no longer just, oh, like, you need your opinion represented so that the person that you want to win the race gets voted in. It's like, no, we need to vote so that they don't, like, we need to keep on showing up so that we continually show that it's important, so that it doesn't
it's
get taken away or can take, because
yes,
we're seeing so many different voter suppression efforts, and they wouldn't be trying to suppress something that they didn't believe was like powerful or worth it,
powerful.
or worth worth the effort. And so we tell them, we allow them to do that by, staying home and by not just trying to disengage. And so I think that honestly, work like this is so important to, again, that preserving the integrity of our democracy. And even if you aren't convinced, if you don't care about the candidates, whatever, still show up, still vote for something, find something that you care about, find something someone else cares about, and ask them and learn and just stay informed, I guess is my, because I think that conviction has to be a lot stronger these days because there's a lot more at stake as we're seeing. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Wendo, for your time. And thanks everyone for joining us talking about this very important topic. And again, in 2 days from now, or in every Wednesday between now and the election, office hours and all that information is in the link. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic day.